Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am Tammy Eisenreich, and I'm a parent partner for the Lucas County Board of Developmental Disabilities. And I am super excited to be talking with Elizabeth Mayer tonight. Full disclosure, she is one of my favorite speech pathologists that we have over here in the Toledo area, as well as a personal friend. Whenever I have a question about insurance and getting things covered, you are definitely the person I call. So thank you for coming on tonight. We're going to talk a little bit about mainly iPads. I guess that's the topic for March, is getting iPads covered. I always say alternate funding sources. Obviously, grants are my thing, and we'll talk about that at the end. But you as a parent with a child with special needs, you were able to get an iPad covered almost, how long ago was it? 10 years ago? 12? I mean, it seems like it was.
Yeah, at least 10 years ago.
Okay. So tell a little bit about yourself, like your.
So it was a great introduction, I guess. I am a speech therapist in the school system, and I am also a parent of a 14-year-old with apraxia. His name is Gavin. I'll mention him probably multiple times. And then I also have a 13-year-old named Preston, and I'm going to talk about him a little bit too, because you'll see why. I'll fall into that. I don't know. Is there anything else? I kind of, honestly, being a speech therapist for 18 years in the school system, I went straight into the school system, and I didn't really feel comfortable or confident in writing insurance requests for devices. And I didn't feel like it was my position. It was more of a clinic based, but I have had a lot of success in the last couple of years and a lot more confidence in doing it. So I'm hoping to spread that. And I hope that other speech therapists in the schools feel more comfortable, and speech therapists in general feel more comfortable, because it has become a lot easier. And so I would have to say, when I was in school in college, we were fighting insurances for, big clunky devices, hard to carry around, very expensive. We didn't have iPads. And so when iPads came out, I remember feeling this is wonderful, mainly because of the cost and the availability. And it wasn't a 20-page report that we had to submit to an insurance. We could somehow purchase it. We could write grants. We could figure it out. And, I think that's when talking with you, Tammy, and other friends, and finding out how to write grants, I got super excited because it was possible and it was easier. And a lot of times, once you get writing grants, they're not so bad. I think people think, whoa, the word grant shocks them and gets them nervous. So I hope at the end you don't feel that way for both insurance and writing grants, or any other way you want to do it, because there are other ways, and we'll talk about that too. So I don't know, is there anything else that personally I should share that you think?
No, I mean, let's start, I guess, at the beginning. So you mainly were looking for grants for kiddos that you were working with as a speech pathologist, or did you go for Gavin's first?
Wow, I'm not sure. I was interested in him in college, but I guess I don't really think I had anything come up before Gavin that anybody was bugging me to write one for. It was a lot of work. I actually, I take that back. I did have a couple kiddos, but I referred them out. I said, I'm not the speech therapist for that. I sought out one at Toledo Hospital that's done it before, and she was willing to do that. The parent signed up for outpatient therapy and had an eval done, because it was a huge process. You had to have an evaluation done, have all of that taken care of. So it's not as big of a process anymore, and I'm hoping to show that. But so what I started out with when Gavin was, I don't know, I want to say 3 or 4, I can't even remember. We sold necklaces, and I wore this on purpose. This was one of them. It's a heart necklace. It was called the Puzzling Piece. They were a 501c3, correct? I believe, that offered parents to sell necklaces, and I can't even remember how many. I think bracelets too, but I basically sold this one, and like kind of a wooden circle that had a smiling face on it, because my son smiles all the time. Well, when he was little, he was really a smiler. but I just thought it fit. And he doesn't have a diagnosis of autism, but we did this puzzling piece and sold the necklaces, and I don't know how many, like I said, and we were able to receive a iPad after selling so many necklaces. And then I felt like we had something to show for it too. So it's always special. And I continue to wear it because this is where his first iPad came from, that gave him his first voice. So then after that, gosh, I don't know when that was, but I started looking into insurance because, you know, his iPad was getting older and we needed to upgrade the iPad. How are we going to pay for it? I found out insurance was paying for devices. I knew I didn't want the old type of clunky devices. I knew I wanted the app that he had been using, which he does use Lamp Words for Life app on his iPad. So I looked into Forbes Rehab Services, and they offered a device. I can't remember the exact name right now, but Freestyle. Oh gosh, I can't remember the name of it. But the device had a warranty. It had an external speaker system. It had a very nice case that I knew would be supportive, and a grid, which I'll talk about grids in a little bit too, because I think we kind of take all the accessories sometimes for granted, or we don't think about them as being necessary. And then we just want that iPad with that app. And that's, you know, where we want to go with it. But there's so much more to it. And by going through insurance or other ways, sometimes you can get all those other things that you don't think of in the beginning. So when I went through Forbes Rehab Services, I had Anthem Insurance, and it was a fight. It was hard. It was a process. Let's just say that it was a process, and you have to be willing to take the process and get documentation and everything collected. Like everything, I mean, you have to prove and do that.
How many appeals would you say you had?
So this was a very interesting case. The company was telling me that the insurance kept sending it back and saying, no, they're not paying for it, and I'd have to call the insurance. Now, I have to say, I did, even though I'm a speech therapist, I highly 100% recommend that you don't do this on your own. A device does need to be customized for the child. The app isn't always the one that you hear about. It's the one that's best for your child. Or the device. There might be a device, or there might be an accessory that your child needs, another child doesn't need. So you don't need to get everything and a specific app until you learn about it and you know exactly which one. So that's part of the process, is learning and knowing what you need. And that takes a little bit of time, but that's okay, because you want to make that best choice so you're not backtracking later. Even though it feels like forever, because you want that in your hands right now. It's a very important thing. So he did go see a speech therapist in Bowling Green for a while that I knew had background in AAC devices. I'm going to mute for 1 second. I'm sorry. So where was I with this? I probably called them every other day, the insurance company, and asked them where it was in process. Parents have a lot more power than the speech therapist when you're calling to ask where, because it's our insurance. As a parent, it's my insurance. The speech therapist is just trying to help you with the verbiage, the writing, the information, getting the doctor note, knowing that everything is there in order. With that device, I did get a grid. If you don't know what a grid is, it's like a key guard that goes over the iPad screen that sections out each icon, so that I thought at the beginning it was more for fine motor skills. And my son was young. He was probably 2 or 3, 4 years old. And I wanted to make sure he knew how to hit the icons and wasn't making errors. But I had multiple people say to me, why would you ever get rid of it? You need a grid on all of them. Because like if you look at your keyboard, if you're on your computer, all your keys are gridded. You don't have to look at it. You can do an automatic, your fingers feel. You have a motor plan and your fingers feel where it is. An iPad or a device is flat surface. And so you can't feel where those icons are. You have to look. There's been a lot of research done with visual impaired children, and they are able to do it because they can feel if they have a grid. And I've seen adults, which this just made so much sense. He wore it on his hip and he didn't look at it at all, but he was voicing with it on his hip. Another thing that I got that at that time that I thought, whoa, didn't think about this, was a Bluetooth speaker. And I have to say, these things were, technology moves fast. This was new at the time. And that was only, 10 years ago? But it was like a necklace that you wore with a speaker you could wear under your shirt. And I thought, how amazing is that if he doesn't have the iPad, right? If he does end up wearing it on his hip, the voice is coming from this area. So that's really powerful socializing reasons. And plus, iPads weren't as cool when he first got it. Now, he goes in the classroom, I was like, he's got an iPad? That's cool. So that's another thing that's really become amazing for our kids on communication devices, is because they're cool with this device that used to be, oh, he's going to stand out. He's going to not look like he fits in, but now they fit in even better because they have this cool thing. So he did get that. The problem was that I didn't think about is at his age and his ability level, he didn't like things around his neck. So he would not wear the speaker and he didn't understand the purpose of it. So at that time, was that really a necessary accessory? No, I probably shouldn't have got it. I did think it was cool and what it was recommended, but we should have probably thought about, would he wear it? Would he understand the concept? Or could we wait 5 years? Because one thing I didn't say is insurances will pay for devices every 5 years. Okay. And then they also come with a 5-year warranty. So I feel like that's huge when you go through insurance versus private or grant, you get that warranty. So if, and I just had a company tell me, if it gets thrown out the bus window, which let me tell you, my son's hearing aids went out the bus window day one. Never thought it would happen. It happens. Have you ever heard of an iPad being dropped in the toilet? They get wet. If you don't have that insurance or that exact perfect case, you're out an iPad. And then applying for another grant or something is really difficult if you have to redo that. But with the insurance, you have that warranty. And I have used that warranty before because my son, being young, peed the bed, got the iPad wet, and we had to have it replaced. But because it was through an insurance company, it had a warranty, we were able to pretty much get it within the week, get it back. It also comes with a nice case, a handle, a carrying, those are the accessories that you can get added to it or ask for. Yep. So then I think as that got older, we did end up purchasing one. So I've had a lot of different experiences with different things. We purchased one because it kind of came with our new phone plan and he wasn't getting a phone. So my 13-year-old now was 12. I think this was last year or the year before. We decided to get him a phone. And we were, we all wanted to be on the same calendar. We wanted him to be, he's in a lot of sports. We wanted to be able to do that. And so we weren't getting Gavin a phone. So why not get him an iPad that has internet on it? Because when I go through insurance, they're not going to want to pay for internet. There's not purpose in that. It's for a communication device through the insurance. Oh, and through the insurance, it is called a speech generated device. They call it an SGD. So their terminology, you can't really say, hey, I would need an iPad. You need a speech generated device is what you're asking for. They also bill it on usually under medical, durable medical equipment. So just like a wheelchair, just like, I don't know, you guys probably know other medical equipment that you might need to put it under, but they do call it an SGD, speech generated device. And then I did want to give out these codes if you do. I don't know if this is the exact proper time, but let me give them out. The first thing you want to do if you want to go through insurance is call the 1-800 number on your card before you talk to the speech therapist about it. I mean, you can talk to your speech therapist about it, don't get me wrong, but so you know if it's even doable. Is your insurance going to pay for it? Do they recognize a speech generated device? Or are they going to deny you after you do this whole process of getting a prescription and getting a speech therapist that's willing to write it, and you start doing all these things? Is it even a possibility? So the codes for a speech generated device, you want to ask that 1-800 number customer service, do you pay for E2510? That's for the speech generated device. But if you also think you want the accessories, talking about the grid, the case, the handle, the speaker system, any accessory that goes with the device, it's E2599. And then if you have a child that's in a wheelchair or a stander or some way that they need it mounted, the mount is different than accessory. So a mount, if you needed it stabilized on something, it's E2512. So those numbers are very important. Parents can do that because it's your insurance. You can find out what is covered. That's kind of something we do when we go to the doctor. We need to know, hey, was this treatment covered before I go and have this treatment? So what durable medical equipment is covered? That's what we want to know. And I believe it's getting more and more recognized. That's what I'm learning. And a lot of these companies are trying to get more understanding with the insurance companies. And I just talked to AbleNet, and they're a company that provides speech generated devices. They've been super, super helpful with everything. And they have been telling me they're in contact with a lot of different insurances and making sure they have the process down and know what to ask and how to word things. And I'll talk about them in a minute. All right. So the third one was that we bought our own. So if you buy your own, the other thing is you can get internet, you have control. That's what I think is really powerful. You can add and delete apps. Sometimes when you get it through the insurance, you have to have their codes. They'll share them with you usually, but sometimes it's a little more of a process. Not that it's terribly hard, but if you buy it, then you have full control. You can call customer service, you can call whatever at any time. So it, kind of is helpful that way. And you put your own Apple ID in there, that kind of thing. But you may want to consider a grant or something else for the accessories, not necessarily the device. That's up to you, or either way. But yeah, you could fundraise or get a grant to get a personal device. So Gavin had a device. Gavin had an iPad. He was cool. Preston was like, I don't have an iPad. I really want one. And we walked around the home show and signed up to wear t-shirts around the home show and won an iPad. So there's from EverDry waterproofing, right? It was a huge thing. He was so excited, and we ended up giving it to Preston because Gavin had one through the insurance. So Preston now had an iPad. And what was cool about that is if you have two kids in your household and you're kind of like, gosh, I got this for one. And, maybe we got this grant for one, but the other kid that's typical doesn't get anything. I did talk about when we got a phone, I got the iPad for Gavin. So it's kind of like, you always fight that as a parent, like, how do we make this fair? And fair is not always the same thing, right? But he won that and he was super excited about that and he was able to use it. Well, what was really cool is Gavin thought, hey, my brother has one of these and so we loaded the app, because once you purchase the app, you have the code, you can put it on 10 devices. So we put it on brother's device and had brother model on his own device. So having multiple devices was really a unique experience, because you can have buy-in. I always talk about having major buy-in from the user and the families and the teachers and community. And a way to get buy-in a lot of times is by doing these extra little, and I know I say little, and buying another iPad isn't little, but it's sometimes worth it. It might be something to think about. So okay, so Preston got an iPad, and I, of course, got a mini because I needed an iPad. And how cool was a mini? I got that from a friend, actually, and I was able to carry that in my purse. And I was kind of like, I have this in my purse. It's small. I don't really know why I have this. And guess what? I was at the grocery store and he didn't have his iPad. His iPad died. I was able to have his app on my mini. For modeling purposes is what I thought, but hey, no, it worked out perfect because I pulled it right out of my purse. It was right there with me. So it's sometimes helpful to have your own little thing to be able to pull out too, because it's technology. And that is one thing I did write down to say sometime in this. It's technology, and technology doesn't always work perfect, and they do have only so long of a life. Our voice has a longer life. And, sometimes we lose our voice from, a little bit with a cold, but not as often as a battery dies or it wasn't plugged in. So they have a little bit more struggle. And especially like, if you have internet on it and your child likes to watch YouTube, and then when you go to talk to them, they're on 10%. because the battery's been drained. So to keep that charged and up and running, that type of thing. So recently we had an issue with the iPad getting older and not charging well and not keeping up with getting transported to school in time or having enough percentage at school, and they were having to charge it at school. We were thinking, how are we going to do? We need an iPad, an upgrade. And I mean, it's kind of, you have to keep upgrading. So you got to think about that too. So you can't use all your resources in one basket and keep writing grants, every 5 years. So if you have that insurance connection and you do it once and you figure out how to do it, and you keep up that every 5 years, it may be your benefit, to your benefit. So I decided to do the insurance route again. And I knew it was going to be kind of a struggle, but it's definitely improved. I did it through AbleNet. I can't tell you what a wonderful experience I've had with them with customer service. Before I got it for my son, I got it for 2 other kids through AbleNet.
And you were their speech pathologist, correct?
I was their speech. Yes. Sometimes I call them my kids, and then everybody's like, who are you talking about? Because I have my kids at school and my kids at home. But some of my kids at school needed a device, and this company was willing to help me out. And as a speech therapist, I probably spent maybe a half an hour, on filling out all of the documentation on the computer. I didn't have to write it in a lengthy form. I put the information in, and they generated, because our computers nowadays are super cool about generating documents that take your words and make them into a document. I can't remember the name of what that's called, that's becoming really popular right now, that you can actually put something in and it'll write a paper for you. So it's kind of like that. And they have figured out what the insurances need. how specific you need to be. I did get one back and they said, can you be a little bit more specific on this? I said, sure, blah, 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 wrote it up. And that was good. We got it. I have to say Medicaid is the easiest, doesn't question it, doesn't come back. My insurance this time, they rejected it. And they told me my 14-year-old nonverbal child that's used a device since he's been 2, doesn't have a severe enough disorder to get a speech generated device. That was the write-up that I got back, the letter. And I looked at it and questioned and said, what? But that's what you're facing with the insurance. They're going to try to say, this isn't necessary, and see if you respond. And you're going to need to possibly, I can't think of the word right now.
So you appealed it.
Appeal. You have to appeal it. So I didn't appeal it, okay, because I know that sounds funny and it's going to be kind of hard to explain, but I questioned myself if I should continue to go through AbleNet, because then I kind of got in my head in a word that maybe I should go through the Pranky Romick company, because PRC, the Pranky Romick company, is who develops the app. So if you go through PRC, the Pranky Romick company, which their website's prentrom.com, if you go through them, the representative is more available. And she was explaining to me that she's more available for their app and she can come in and do trainings. That's part of the warranty that they provide. So she could help train teachers and other people that are in his environment. And then I got in my head and thought, well, if I do that, and then I have AbleNet here and I've done Forbes, because I like to know what all these things do to share it out with everybody else. I thought, well, maybe I need to go that route too and find out how easy the process is with the Pranky Romick company. So I'm in the process. I'm just at the beginning of that. I don't know if that doesn't work. I know with them, there is a lot of trialing devices. So also keep that in mind. You have to trial multiple devices and they come to your house or come to the speech therapy office. And then your child tries them for so long and you have to say, they work for my child or they don't work for my child. And this is the reason why. And it's part of the application process. So that's another thing that makes it a little lengthier time-wise for your child to get one. So we did that. Okay. So I'm in the process of trying to figure out how to get an iPad to appeal it, but what company to go through to appeal it. And I told you, it's really nice to have a speech therapist with you. At this time, I don't have a speech therapist. Well, I do, his school speech therapist, but I am really taking on a lot now with being kind of telling the speech therapist what I want and being in the mom role. But if you have the speech therapist and you're the mom or dad, sorry, I can't leave out dads because I know dads know a lot too. But if you are that other person, there's 2 people working on this for the good of the child and can put their brains together. The more people that know that child and putting their brains together to figure out what's best sometimes gives you a lot more information. And you're not feeling like I'm making a decision. I don't know if it's the wrong decision. You can kind of bounce ideas off of each other. So it is really nice to have that other person.
I've had multiple families say that they never get it the first time, that there's always at least one appeal, if not 2 or 3. And it's just more of a paperwork. They want more documentation. And so I tell families that we've granted devices to track the data. This is your perfect opportunity to use this in a home environment, school environment, therapy, grandmas, and track that data. And that's more information you could submit to your insurance to try to show that this is being used as a dedicated communication device and it's successful. Would you say?
Yes, I absolutely agree. And, you can't give up. That's the thing. Like, it's easy to say, forget this. And I've heard it millions of times. Forget this. I'm just writing the grant. The insurance companies need to have us appeal, because if if we can appeal now, I'm hoping in 1-2 years, it's not going to be as bad for those other families because they're going to know the process. They're going to see more come through, and it's going to be more of a equipment that's like a wheelchair. They're like, oh, the kid needs a wheelchair. We understand wheelchairs. We understand why they need it. We've seen this before. So we kind of need to do it for our future humans.
Well, like
So,
autism, right? Remember when our kid,
right,
yours isn't with autism, but when John's 17, when we were diagnosed at 15 years ago, they had just started getting a CPT code for autism, but
right,
everyone's like, nope, it's not covered. Well, what I was told by Blue Cross and Blue Shield, if you walk in and they don't even take your insurance card, right? You don't submit, it's not getting counted. So down the road, they can't really have a true idea of how many kiddos with autism would have been submitting for speech therapy, for occupation therapy, for ABA.
absolutely.
They never take your insurance. There's no way to track the data and to show that it is needed. So I think that was what more and more families were being told. Submit on your own. I'll give you an itemized bill from the doctor's office. We don't take your insurance because it's not covered, but it still needs to be counted. And that's how I look at these devices now. We need to see more and more families are wanting to use, iPads as, like you said, a speech generated device. So.
Right. Yeah, that's absolutely it. We need to appeal. We need to get that denial, and then we need to continue to appeal. And it's not that you can't go and write that grant maybe for your first one and then start the process with the insurance. So then you can get momentum going and you have that time if you need to, or do a fundraiser, or get it through your phone. Like I was saying with those things. The other thing that I did is I used my family resource funding through the county for an iPad. Because to help us with that process. I have to also say, I highly, highly recommend that you get it through something, a grant, insurance, private pay. You get it and you use that as your child's voice, and don't use it. Don't ask for the school system to get it. I know that sounds really crazy, and I know I work for a school system, but the school system has all control of that iPad, and you may not get it in the summer. You may not be the one in control of updating it and adding those Cheetos on there that your child loves, or how it's used, or it may not come home at night, and then they're not getting that same wording that they're getting at school. So your voice box goes with you. And I really think that device needs to be loved and honored by that child, and know that it's mine and it goes with me and I know how to take care of it. So I don't say that. I do say that the school system should have one, because if your child's goes down, or if they need to learn more about it, there is a learning curve with the devices. So I love for the schools to have one and have the things, but I think it's important for us to go through insurance and go through private or resource funding, or however we have to do it. So it's an ownership of ours and we have more control of helping our child with it.
I agree. So this is a list that we put together. Gosh, it's been out for probably 10 years, other ways to getting an iPad, really helping, but really knowing what you want or you need. And I always tell families, go into Best Buy, go into Target, touch, feel, see, when we ask on the different grants, which I will mention that iTalk and Parker's Purpose is opening their next iPad grant on April 1st. We ask what you want. What device are you looking for? We want you to do some research, have your child touch and feel it, and see if a mini would be appropriate, or if the screen is too small and you need the visually larger buttons or whatever, then the full-size iPad obviously would be what you want.
And Tammy, I also have to say with AbleNet, they did also tell me, I have a kiddo that we were like, I think a mini would be great for this child. He's in high school. Maybe we can downsize it a little bit so he can carry it easier. With the insurance, with the warranty and everything, you're able to, if the mini doesn't work, send it back in and get a different one. Say the mini doesn't work, under warranty, please, can we have a bigger one? And they will switch it over.
Kate's saying DD waivers also cover speech generated devices. And sometimes you have to appeal through them too. We'll be honest here. We know the board isn't always the easiest source to get things. They really want a true paper trail. They really want to see that it's just not a list of items that, oh, so-and-so got a trampoline, so-and-so got a weighted vest, so-and-so got an iPad. That isn't, they really want to show self-determination and that each child's need is different. So the more research I think parents can do is for the best. We just talked about like the different fundraising pages, these are a lot of the grants that are available. But above that, I talk about using the verbiage for what you're asking. And I can't get there, sorry. Like when you were talking about your school district providing it, a lot of the language you use when you talk about it, as you said, it's not an iPad, it's a speech generated device. If you're medically necessary, those are the words that you use. I have had a family that did get the device covered for like daily living skills, transition to the workplace. They were working at Buffalo Wild Wings and were able to use their device to help with the food aspect, the ordering of it, and kept them on task. And they did get it covered by Medicaid. But typically with medical insurance, it is the speech generated devices that we're seeing. It's not like my son used an iPad for helping with his handwriting. We use the YouTube app for reading, with Godzilla, with the closed captions on the bottom. Those wouldn't be medically necessary reasons for using the device. So, some of the grants, I don't know, Beth, I'm going to guess you got yours from Northwest Apraxia. Is that right?
No, I never did get one from them.
No. Okay.
Well, I actually don't think I have gotten an iPad through a grant. I've gotten accessories and things. I know, that's so
Well,
weird.
and how many families have you, oh, you had a choice.
You know what I did get from a grant? See, so the iPads I'm saying you can get through insurance because sometimes you need other things. I did get a laptop that was because if you have the LAMP app and you want to use the Pranky Romic website, there is a way to write with icons and make things for your child, your student, but you have to have it's not an Apple. You have to have personal computer, PC. So he got a small PC laptop, just mainly for the idea of printing things, making things for reading books, using that purpose.
Okay. Well,
and that's something you can't ask for from your insurance. So you see, that's why I'm saying ask for the speech generated device, use the grants more. That's why I'm trying to give you an idea of use the grants for the things that aren't the medical durable equipment.
Yep. Well, and we talked about that. Sometimes once you get a grant, it might be 1 year that you have to wait until you can reapply, 3 years before you can reapply, or you might only be able to get one source of funding from an organization. So really sitting down and looking at the options that are available out there and kind of picking and choosing which ones you're using for which. So like with iTalk, as I think most people on here know, that being the vice president of iTalk, we only give iPads and apps. So my thought as a parent, if that's what you're needing, look for those organizations that's their true mission, is that. And Apraxia Kids, their tablets for Apraxia, that's all they do is tablets. So I think for families, sometimes they'll go and share their story and it talks about how they need an iPad and they need a fence and they need this all in one letter, and they send it to all the different organizations. I'm like, no, you need to sit down and kind of separate them, look at what covers speech. If you need speech and OT, look for those organizations that only help with speech therapy, like Small Steps in Speech and the Orange Effect. And then if you also need occupation therapy, that's where you start looking at, like if your child has autism, look at Avenues for Autism or Acoustics, really realizing that one organization isn't going to be able to help you with everything, and prioritizing what their main mission is and asking for that. It's going to put your application in, to the top of the pile that way. So I'm trying to think. the other organization that I've come across, I interviewed her back in November, I think, is Lily's Voice. It's a mom that 10 years ago type of thing was on her own with the device, much like you. She reminded me of you, Beth, like you were so passionate about getting this tool into the hand of your child. There wasn't a lot of training out there for her, so she kind of did it on her own. One of the things you have to do when you apply with her is you have to watch these little training videos that she's put together and pulled off of Assistiveware is truly, what a lot of it she's done. And she wants you to review these and do these. And then when you apply with her, she does a phone call with you. So this particular iPad grant is only for nonverbal children. She is a big Assistiveware, which is Per Lakota Go. She now has started looking into touch chat a little bit as well. But she also believes that if your team around your child were to say it's LAMP, she's not opposed to giving you an iPad with LAMP on it too. She thinks a lot of these trainings are good for all communication apps, not just, Per Lakota Go. And I think especially since COVID, there are so many YouTube videos out there of parents and professionals that have been doing, virtual learning on these devices. And like you said, getting that buy-in, having parents feel comfortable with using this as their voice, modeling it, and all of that, I think, is a win-win. And when you are asking for these in your grant stories, it's going to come across that you know what you're talking about. I mean, I can't tell you, 13 years ago when iTalk first started, we get applications that were just like, oh, I hear iPads are great for kids with autism, but there was no connection there. They didn't, a lot of times you could tell families didn't even know what the device could do. So that's why now our iPad grants are tied to a training, because our hope is we want to educate you a little bit. So,
I did have that written down. I love that you mentioned that, because I do, like, I did kind of say a little bit, but before you apply for the insurance or apply for whichever way you're going to choose, do research and find out, take some training courses, make sure you're getting and wanting and knowing what you want, because every source anywhere, the insurance, the grant, the community
Board of
resource,
DD.
whatever, Board of DD, everybody that you're asking for this iPad with an app or communication, they want to know specifically, do you want an 11-inch? Do you want a 12-inch? Do you want it to have internet? Do you want it to do this? So if you don't know the lingo and you don't know what you want or need or what your child needs, then it's not going to get approved. It's going to take even longer. So go into it to learn what exactly you would like and what kind of would you do second too. Don't be set on one thing, but say, what would I accept? Or what could be a possibility?
Yep. So did we have any questions? I know we had a couple people come on later. I'm looking here twice.
Yeah, and I did want to say, I mentioned those grids. I have one more little note on here.
Uh-huh.
But I did, when I got my own iPad or, well, whatever, didn't get it through insurance, there are some companies or websites that you can actually order grids specifically for any app. And, or if you're know somebody or can be technically handy, if you find a 3D printer like the library and you know how to do that, or you can have somebody help you, they do have programs out there that 3D print and make that plastic overlay for the different devices.
And it protects the glass too. I've been hearing families talk about that, the screens that crack. So, okay.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Beth. I do want to remind everybody that all of these videos can be found on the Lucas County Board of DD's website under resources. And I have my own tab now, Finding Funds. The sheet that I was showing you of how help getting an iPad, all of my grant lists are listed on here that you can, why am I not seeing? I don't see, oh, there it is. I'm like, why don't I see help getting an iPad? And as well as the link to the Zoom sessions that we're doing, and all past episodes are recorded on there as well. So for anyone that missed this, you can always go back to the lucasdd.org's website and find it there. Next month for April, the Grant Workshop Wednesday will be on April 26th. Then once again, I'm trying to get a wish granting organization or one of those. I think I have a kid again signed ready to do it, but it'll be found on our Facebook page. But once again, thank you guys.
Thank you.
I think I stopped it. Does it look like I stopped? I should be better at this by now, don't you think?
I don't know how to tell.
There you go. I think I did. I'll find out. Stop sharing. We'll take that away. Okay. So does anybody have any
Oh, it
questions?
still says record.